And so I left out this huge chunk of like the whole sermon because I got so flustered that I said naked funny that I just, didn't ever recover from it. So what we're going to do tonight is go ahead and turn back over to Genesis. We're going to be in Genesis chapter 3, and we're going to be bouncing over a little, all over the place, because I had to go back and kind of rehash everything that I've missed. So we're going to be touching on a few things that I talked about and kind of be getting back into it where, how I wanted to get into it, okay? Remember I told you guys about my friend that's an atheist that his wife died? For you guys that weren't here, I had this friend at Carpet Corner where I work, and he's just a good guy. I mean, he's just real nice, In fact, when I first met him, I was like, man, this guy has to be a Christian. He's such a good and moral person. Well, after I talked to him, he's like, no, I'm an atheist. Or an agnostic. I can't remember which one he said he was, but he was atheist, agnostic. He didn't believe in the Christian faith. And he's like, I'm a show me man, show me. I'm a science man. There's so many different gods out there. Everybody professes a different God. How do I know which one to believe, and how do I know it's true? And the Bible is written by man, and real cool guy. He said that real cool. He's never hacked on me because of my faith. And most atheists and agnostic, if you get them going, they'll just kind of dig at you. They'll just try to disprove it. But Scott, he's always been real cool. He's always supported me working in the ministry. If I needed time off, I always got it off. And he's just, he's just real supportive. And so last week, I'm friends with him on Facebook, and his wife had terminal cancer. Well, last week, his wife died, and she was an atheist too. And that was the first person that I've ever known. I don't know her personally, but I know of her, but that's the first person I've ever known that has died without faith and that I know is in hell right now. And I was thinking about this today, and I was just like, or before that, I was praying, I was like, God, I don't even know how to approach the situation. Because, I'd witnessed to him a couple times, and he was always real nice, real, took it in, and just like, I just don't believe. And I was like, okay. And I was like, well, I'll put you on the prayers. And he was like, well, thanks. I always need the prayers. So, he's always been real cool about it. And it's just like, I was thinking about his wife, and his wife's just, in misery right now. And the last few hours of her life was in torment and pain and agony. And that's what she woke up to for eternity. With no hope of ever getting out. And so I thought about that, and I was like, how can I ever witness to Scott again, knowing that if he comes to faith in Christ, that he also comes to believe that his wife's in hell for eternity, in agony and torment. And so it's been a very, very, it reminded me of Lazarus and the rich man, and how the rich man went to hell, and Lazarus was to Abraham's bosom, and the rich man was like, please, just send someone to talk to my brother so they don't end up here. And I was wondering just how much that thought is screaming in her mother's mind right now. Someone has to get to them so they do not have to endure this. I mean, think about that. Her mom's just screaming. And Scott, they had a daughter, and I forget the name, but it's such a weird thing, and I've been praying to God, and I was like, God, I don't even know how to approach this. I don't know what the loophole is, but you said you would provide something if I would seek you. And today I saw Scott for the first time. I mean, I saw him yesterday, but I was still just so blown away. Just seeing him brought back all these emotions that I'd been feeling, and I couldn't even bring myself to say anything to him the other day. And so I've just been praying about a way to approach it, or for a door to open, or just for some situation. And so I get there today, and his daughter's been coming to work with him because, she's lost her mom. And even though she's a college student, that's pretty traumatic. If you guys think about losing your mom, I think everybody should have to face a situation where they think their mom's going to die. I did for about 3 days. And it totally shaped my life and my relationship with my mom. Because once I thought about everything that she meant to me, and everything that she's done for me, and the thought of not having her no more, all I could think about was all the bad things that I've always said or done. I couldn't think of the good things.
You did almost 8 years ago.
So I think everybody should go through that experience with your mom and your dad. I've never met my dad. But anyway, I saw Scott up there and he introduced me to his daughter, and then it clicked. It's just like, man. Because Scott, as funny as it seems, Renee, when she was young, she babysitted Scott's daughter. And I was like, so I met his daughter and I was like, oh yeah, my wife said she used to babysit you. And she was like, oh, I used to love when she'd come over. And I was like, that's the door right there. Because I don't know how many different situations when Mike McDonald tells his witness story, he says that it took Lauren coming up and asking his daughter, I don't know if you guys met Lauren, but she's another teen in here. He says Lauren came up and asked him one day, Daddy, don't you love Jesus? And that's what changed him. He was like, whoa. And then he got involved with the church, now he's one of the deacons. But the thing is, how many children can affect the lives of the father? And so now it's not really up to me. Renee, I just told them about, the daughter of Scott, knowing them, and I just got fired up. And Renee called me at lunch, and I was like, man, you've got to friend her on Facebook. This is how it's got to go. I know. If we reach the daughter's going to reach the dad. And so it's just like, God opens up a door. How many doors do we get opened up to us, but never step through? You know what I mean? How many doors does God say, here's the way, but we chicken out and don't do it? And so I just kind of wanted to give you guys that update. And because it was really like an answered prayer. It was really weird that he had been bringing her to work, and I'd actually got to meet her and stuff. And so it was just cool how it worked out. So last week we started talking about the whole Genesis account, the first dispensation, the Edenic Dispensation, and we went through chapters basically 2 and 3, and we got to this part that chapter 2 verse 25, and they were both naked, the man and the wife, and were not ashamed. And I brought that up because I wanted to show you guys something, but then everybody just started laughing because I guess the way I said it with a little bit of a hick tone, or I say naked. So we all got tickled, and I totally missed out on that. But over here, go over to chapter 1, verse 27. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him. Male and female created he them. Well, the whole point that I was bringing up about this is because I was really thinking about God's he does a lot of things the same way. You know what I mean? He's pretty, I don't know the word for it, but in all of his other creations, in mammals and fish and all that stuff, he creates them with clothing. You ever notice that? There's not an animal out there. Fish have scales, skin, snakes have skin, mammals have fur. I mean, they're all clothed. You don't see any animals running around naked, do you? Unless you got some kind of that wicked fat cat off of, what's that one cat off of, is that Austin Powers? That's a horrible movie, but what's the show where that nasty cat's on that's like has no fur?
It is Austin Powers.
Austin Powers.
Unless you see a sheep that'll just be cheered.
Okay, but it has natural clothing on it, okay?
Sure.
So I was thinking about, what do you guys think that God created man without clothing? Because it says that he was naked, but it also said that God created him in his own image. Turn to Psalms 104. You guys, we're going to get tested on the books of the Bible tonight, but I went and forgot my sheet.
Wow.
Psalms 104. And verses 1 and 2. Bless the Lord, O my soul, O Lord my God. Thou art very great, thou art clothed with honor and majesty. who coverest thyself with light as with a garment, who stretchest out the heavens like a curtain. Well, that's how God's clothed right there. He's clothed in light and glory. And before Adam and Eve sinned, they had a curtain of glory about them, of light that covered their reproductive parts. And when they sinned, that light went away because they were no longer sinless. Does that make sense? You guys can kind of ask your parents about it or talk about it. That's not 100% conclusive, but the set of pastors that I follow believe that to be true, because I always kind of check out what I'm teaching with them. But anyway, last week we started talking about, flip over to, back to Genesis. We're going to be in Genesis 3. And remember how we started talking about the fruit, and I asked how many of you guys in that wicked little dark place of a heart said that I wouldn't have ate the fruit? And Adam and Eve, did any of you ever sit back and be like, I wouldn't have ate that fruit? I would have ran and told God, look what she did. Hey, Travis, I'm not going to mess with you guys tonight. Okay. All right? So anyway, go back to, we're going to be in chapter 3, verse 6. And when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and the tree was pleasant to the eyes, and the tree was to be desired to make one wise, she took of the fruit thereof and did eat, and also gave to her husband with her, and she did eat. Turn back to John, and we went through this last week, 1 John. We went through this last week, and we're going to kind of cover it again just a little bit, because I had a lot of thoughts going into this, and I just kind of got sidetracked. I really don't. 1 John, when I get to 1 John, I'll tell you what verses, because I don't want you reading ahead. So 1 John, as soon as I get there, I'll give you the rest. 1 John 2, verses 15 and 16. Love not the world, neither the things that are in the world. If any man love this world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, the pride of life, is not of the Father, but is of the world. And we talked about how Eve saw each one of those things in the apple. And she saw the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. And I wanted to go back kind of into those, and we said the good for the food was the lust of the flesh. What exactly does lust mean? Any guesses? To want something? You're just taking off your shirt.
I'm putting on my sweatshirt.
Oh, putting on a shirt. Lust is to desire what is forbidden. An obsessive craving. Okay? So when we talk about lust of the flesh, a lot of the times, 90% of the times we talk about lust of the flesh, we talk about sexual sin. Right? I mean, you guys, when I think of lust of the flesh, I think about, people out there prostituting themselves and that kind of stuff, and adulterous situations. And we're going to go to Proverbs 6:25, and we're going to hit a couple verses that talk about that, but then I also want to take it in a different direction. Proverbs 6:25, lust not after her beauty in thine heart, neither let her take thee with her eyelids. Will you guys in the back row straighten up? I need all of you focused and not back there chit-chatting. With the lust of the, have you ever seen a girl, guys, that she flatters you with her fluttering eyes, and you're just like, you don't got it. Quit doing it. No, I'm joking. But anyway, she just flatters her eyes, or she just knows exactly how to talk to you. Man, there's this girl in high school that could just really, you hear about the girls that slept with every guy on the football team, and she could just really go after any person that she wanted to. And it was just, I don't think she was really attractive, but I think it's just the way she portrayed herself. The way she talked, and she fluttered her eyes, and she was just really kind of promiscuous, and so she could really get anyone she wanted. Turn to Matthew 5. And we all know this. I think I've hammered it in a little bit, but might as well hammer it in a little bit more. Matthew 5, it's in the Sermon on the Mount. Verse 28. Oh, back up a verse so we can get it in context. Ye have heard that it was said by them of old, thou shalt not commit adultery. But I say unto you, that whosoever looketh on a woman to lust after her hath committed adultery with her already in his heart. Can you believe? I mean, Jesus, when he's on the Sermon on the Mount, go over to the first, I think chapter 5,
Of what?
Matthew, and this kind of kicks off the Sermon on the Mountain. It's kind of a loaded verse, and it says, "And seeing the multitudes, he went up into the mountain, and when he was set, his disciples came unto him. And he opened his mouth and taught them, saying, well, here's Jesus. All this crowd's been following him, right? And so he had to really get away. And he says when he went up into a mountain, and just his disciples came, because he was getting ready to give them an elevated teaching. Because Jesus, in times past, gave them the 10 Commandments because they were God. And Jesus is now saying, well, you've heard it said of them of old. Well, he's talking about the Pharisees and the Sadducees that have, jumbled around the 10 Commandments, and they've made up all these rules. Well, he's saying, let me tell you what I really meant by that. When I said, thou shalt not commit adultery, well, let me take it to this level. What I really meant is don't commit adultery, and even if you look at a woman in lust, you're committing adultery. But they butchered my 10 Commandments, and that's what the Sermon on the Mount's all about, is he's given them an elevated teaching of, hey, this is what I meant. And there's also a deeper meaning. This is how the world's going to be ran in the millennium. The Sermon on the Mount's a millennial book. And that's how he'll run the kingdom for 1,000 years. Okay? But I don't want to get into that. That's a whole different topic. Turn to Romans. Chapter 1. And likewise, also the men, leaving their natural use of women. Well, that's gay guys, right? God made man and woman to be together. And guys left their natural use of women. Let's see. Leaving the natural use of women, burn in their lust one towards another, men and men working that which is unseemly and receiving in themselves that recompense of their error, which was meet. I mean, you got all these sexual sins going on, and that's what most people think about when we talk about lust of the flesh. I mean, I don't know, I don't believe you guys. You know what I mean? I don't believe you, because now you got internet on your phones, you got computers in your room. You guys have pornography. I mean, how many of you guys dabble in it? Don't raise your hand, because I don't believe you. If you say I haven't done it, I don't believe you. Because I used to mess with it. And let me tell you what, if you mess with it a little bit, you're going to get addicted to it. I have a cousin. I have many cousins, and they're always great examples to me because they're all like lost sheep. They're all doing the things of the world, and the one has this man that lives with her in a basement, and their thing was pornography. Well, let me tell you how it backfired. The girl was into it at first, and then the guy got into it, and he's like, oh. Now the woman seems so insignificant because all he wants to do is look at women in pornography. You know how many relationships have been ruined? How many marriages have been ruined? Your guy's life will be ruined. You will get messed up in the junk. You will start sinning. You'll start desiring sex outside of marriage, and you will ruin your purity, your virginity. Man, how many eyes are on the floor? Don't look around at each other because I don't want you guys to give each other away. But there is a lot of eyes on the floor. Stop it. When you get saved, there are things that should change in your life. There are things. I heard something on the radio today that Jesus' death justified you. His blood redeemed you. And you were meant to become holy. And if you're not having changes in your life right now, then maybe you never got the justification or sanctification that you were supposed to. Because at that time you were created new. At that time you had a new calling. The old man was dead. The new man came alive. And when you see that crap, you should run from it like it was a hot flame. You shouldn't touch it. You shouldn't go around it. You shouldn't even look at it. In the Bible, I can't remember which one it is, but there's a verse in there that says, I have made a covenant with mine eyes. I have made a covenant with my eyes. Because without these eyes, lust of the flesh as far as sexual sin is not too hard to avoid, is it? Because Jesus said, it's better if one eye offend thee, pluck it out. It's better to go to heaven for eternity with one eye than in hell for eternity with both eyes. I'm telling you guys, if you guys mess with that stuff, you're going to get burned. And it will damage your life. But really, lust of the flesh, I really want to hit on that. Lust of the flesh can be about anything. And I want to show you that aspect of it. Because I just glanced over it last time. Turn to 1 Corinthians 10:6. Guys, if you're doing it, just stop it. Stop now. Say tonight, I will not do it again. If you're doing it, stop it. There's things that you're supposed to stop doing when you get saved. You don't continue to live in it. Every time you look at that crap, you take Jesus with you and He has to sit through you sinning. If His Holy Spirit lives in you, every time you do something wrong that you're not supposed to, whatever you guys do in the dark hours of the night when you think nobody's around, Jesus is there. He's in you. He's with you. You have been crucified with Him. He lives in you. You live in Him. When you drag yourself through the mud, you drag Him through the mud with you. And I don't know about you, but Jesus died on the cross. He was crucified for my sins. And how dare I take Him back to what He's already died for once? And that's what you should think about. When you do the things that you're not supposed to do, Jesus has already died for it. Why drag Him through it again? 1 Corinthians 10:6. This gives us a little bit of a broader aspect of it. Now these things were our examples to the intent that we should not lust after evil things, as they also lust. Well, there's a lot of things, and I wanted to show this to you guys because there's a lot of things that aren't evil, but can become evil in our life. Okay, like I told you guys this example. One of the things, when I look at my Christian walk, I've laid so many things down at the cross and just been able to pull myself out of them. And I wasn't going to go into this, but I really started thinking about it. I heard this, big article on the news today that this month is Child Abuse Month, okay? And it hit so relevant to me because I was thinking about this battle with the flesh. I've always ate. I know everybody eats, but I'm overweight, And I think that becomes a sin to me because I think I take the time that Christ could use me here on this earth and I could shorten it because of bad health. But when I thought about this, I thought about what really brought me to the root of overeating all the time. I started eating when I was a kid. I always make a joke that I was skinny for like 10 minutes in the 3rd grade because I got one snapshot of me skinny. And the rest is all big. And I related it, and one day it just snapped. In the 3rd grade, I started being sexually molested by my uncle. And I didn't know how to deal with it, and I had all these feelings and the shame and all this stuff. And food, I mean, it just made me feel happy. It just made me feel like I could bear with it, okay? And I started eating when I was sad, when I was depressed after being molested. And I'm not talking about a once in a while thing. He lives with me. I was being molested every day, every other day. It was a constant thing. It was a constant thing for up until probably 12, 13, 14. First year of high school. And I learned to become so tight-lipped about it. Like my mom would ask me, she was like, has anyone ever touched you? Because, you know, she's worked in nursing and stuff, and she knows how to pick up those signs. And I would have those signs, but I hid it for so long it became second nature. They'd say no. And then one time I got involved with this charismatic youth group up in Montana, and it was a great youth group, and it was just a lot of fun. That's back when they weren't so crazy, you know, and we just had fun. And this guy named Rick Gerber, and I've talked to him within the last year after not talking to him for about 20 years. I was able to find his number, but he took a special interest in me. And he's like, well, let's go out to lunch sometime. And he was just asking me random questions. And I was talking and I was comfortable with him. And I think for 1 second, God loosed my tongue. And I mentioned it to him like it was a casual thing. Like everybody's uncle molested him. And he didn't say anything, but he called me the next day and he's like, hey, let's go get some ice cream or something, you know. And he's like, you know, I gotta turn this into the cops. I can't do this. And I just broke, and I was like, oh, finally I don't have to do this no more. And so I battled with the flesh, with this eating for all this time. And still, I put down drugs, I put down alcohol, I put down all these things. But somewhere, something that's bred so deep into my background is eating. I've been an emotional eater. I eat when I'm happy, I eat when I'm sad. But now I've looked at it, and as I've thought about it, this is the lust of the flesh for me. And it's counted as sin in my life. And I need to do something about it. Because to die would be awesome, to go home with the Heavenly Father. But to die without doing all the things that He had intended for me to do prematurely because of something I did by eating too much. No. I want to be called, well done, thou good servant, not the wicked. And so we all have things like that. And I want to use that as an example because we all have, you know, you guys are getting to the age where some of you are going to high school, some of you are getting ready to go to college. And man, it's just the cesspool. Every little jump is something different. You go to middle school, wow, you may deal with some cussing. Well, when you're in elementary school or whatever the step is before that, and all kids are still kind of not in their too crazy stage, and the next thing, middle school, man, everybody just starts cussing, and you're just like, man. But then you go to high school, and people get into the drinking and the drugs. Hey guys, if you drink a little bit, it's like pornography. You're going to drink a lot. It's going to mess up your life. I'm a living testimony to it. Just like smoking. Smoking. You know, we have all these things, and we say, and we have this great thing. We have this thing called liberty in Christ, okay? And even Paul says, Timothy, drink thee a cup of wine to settle thy stomach, okay? So, what the difference is we have to be able to judge what's good for us and what's not. And we're going to get into that. But I did one of these DARE classes, and it just kind of painted my life up on a wall through these slides. Because it showed this high school kid, and actually I was in middle school, and I started smoking cigarettes. And man, it gave you a buzz. I was like, whoa. You know, it kind of made you feel a little dizzy and stuff. And I was like, oh man, for a brief second, I liked that because it took away all of my thoughts. Because even though my uncle was in prison, I wasn't being molested anymore. I had all of these deep emotional scars that were just in there, that was just eating me up. And man, for that brief 45 seconds after I smoked a cigarette, I was just on another world. I didn't have to think about it. And they say cigarettes really is the introductory drug. People say marijuana, but cigarettes, if you don't smoke a cigarette, you have a 90% successful rate of never doing any drugs. You smoke a cigarette, you go down to about a 10% rate of not doing any drugs. Because you're always looking for the bigger, better, faster thing. My next thing was marijuana, and man, that was awesome because now that lasted for about 30 minutes. But the next thing I knew, I was so strung out on drugs, and I would always justify it, and I would be like, well, no matter what I do, I'm never going to be like one of those junkies that shove a needle in their arm. 10 years down the road, guess what I was doing? I was jamming a needle in my arm, banging dope. Well, I'm never going to be like them. And that's where it will take you. It will take you to the bottom. And it's a bottom that will just keep digging itself and digging itself and digging itself. There is no bottom in drugs. They say this is how it ends up. Jails, institutions, or death. That's your bottom in drugs. Either you're going to be put away, either you're going to be mentally unstable, you're going to have to go to an institution, or you're going to die. But through God's grace, after a failed suicide attempt, I woke up and I said, God, if I wasn't able to die through all that, then surely you have a better plan for my life. And that was 8 years ago. And oh, what God can do. So drinking, smoking, drugs, man, I tell you what, it's just, man, just don't even run from it like it's a hot flame. Don't touch it. Don't think about it. Don't go near it. Remember last week how we talked about the guy that was walking by, and then he was standing by, and then he was sitting in Psalms 1:1. And then we talked about how Peter, right before he denied Christ, he was found walking, and he was down sitting, and he was found sitting with enemies of Christ right before he denied him. Well, something that I said I would never do, I walked by. And then I became okay with it, and then I stood by him, and then I sat down with him, and I became one. So guys, run from it. Don't even get involved with it. Don't make friends with it. Your job is to reach the lost, okay? But reach the lost. You're supposed to be in the world, not of the world. Don't spend your time. You're not going to be a witness to the crackhead, okay? There's nothing that you're going to say to a crackhead that's going to make him get saved. If he's smoking that crack, that's his God. He has to hit a bottom before he'll ever relinquish power from those drugs and give it to somewhere else. So if you know somebody doing drugs, the best thing to do is pray for him. Don't go after him. Let God do it. Because he'll bring him down to a rock bottom end. One way or another. He'll bring him down. He brought me down. Back on a little bit of another topic. What about electronics? Does anybody do the lust of the flesh? Is electronics an issue in their life? Because I think about cell phones. Man, I was like, what about if people treated their Bibles like they treat their cell phones? Like this. Man, that's nice, right? What about if they did that? What about if, oh, I forgot my Bible at home. I'm going to take an extra 15 minutes, run back and get it. How many people you know that's done that with their phone? I've done it. I have to have my phone to work, but I was like, oh, you know, it's such a pain in the butt. I was like, what did I do 15 years ago when I didn't have a cell phone?
You can look up your Bible.
Yeah, well, let's just be honest. How many people use their cell phone for Bibles, right? All right. No. We're not going to get talking and get me disrupted here, okay? But what about if people shine this thing up? What about if people, hey, stop talking. What about if people, boy, spend as much time in this as if they spent looking at these apps and those apps? What about, oh, look at this app for my life. Woo! You guys ever think about that? I mean, when I go to the gym, I see these guys wearing, you know, it used to be real cool that these cell phones got real small, and now they're getting like laptop size again. And I was like, pretty soon they're going to have this laptop strapped to their arm for working out. And I'm like, good grief, that's like, you know what I mean? It's just kind of, it's ridiculous. But look, how many pasty white, Cheeto stained gamers you know? How many pasty white people that you know that sit in their room and man, whew, their life sucks. But when I'm on my game of choice, I'm a god. How many people do you know like that? Oh man.
I mean, who aren't saved?
Just, it's not a question. Think about it. Don't talk about it. How many people do you know like that though? The same, I have so many cousins. I have a couple cousins just right off my mind. I have a cousin that has two little boys by two different men, has a different man living in the basement. Oh yeah, the one that I talked about before. She's just like in a plethora of things to learn not to do. Okay? And her whole life consists of getting up and playing this stupid video game. Playing it till she gets tired, then she goes and lays down. Gets up, plays this video game, while her kids have no parental guidance at all. She has one little boy, and he was smart, but she has made him retarded by a lack of teaching. She has raised that boy like she was raised. Her parents did a crappy job too. Her parents gave him a bunch of video games. Here, say, here's a new video game. Go play that for a couple weeks, leave us alone, and whenever you need another one, come get me and I'll get you another one so you can leave us alone. That's the way she was raised. That's the way he's being raised. And it's just passed from generation to generation. Because we have an epidemic. Nobody has anything in their life worth living for anymore. And why live this worthless life when for $30 a month I can reign as a king in a video game and that's where I get my happiness? Because I know people like that. I have family like that. And man, this one I think is the epidemic of the day. Sports. Oh. Let's not bring that into the lust of the flesh. Not sports. We've just talked about the major idolatry of America. Well, money is money, but man, sports is right there. Money's right here, sports is right there. Boys, shut up. I did a little experiment back there when KU lost, and I just kind of chipped off a shot, and I didn't even really talk about it that much. I just said, hey, what about that KU game? And boy, the room just lit up. It was like, because I hate sports. In fact, I just had a buddy call me. He's like, hey, what are you doing Friday? What are you and Renee doing Friday? And I was like, oh, I don't know. Why? What are you doing? He's like, hey, you want to go to the Royals game with us? I was like, heck no. I was like, man, don't waste my time with sports. The best commercial I've ever seen about sports is during the Super Bowl, and it said another unproductive 3 hours we've wasted in front of the TV. Wow, that's a good commercial right there. And I was like, yep, That beat it. The commercials can't get any better than that. I'm not even watching the Super Bowl anymore. It's a waste of time. But how many people use that? Man, I get aggravated when our youth group goes from 15 to 20 to 8. Because in the school year, everybody's got these different sports that they have to go to. I'm not saying sports are bad. I'm saying it's a fine line. I'm saying you have to monitor yourself. Let me just ask you this. How many sports play games on Wednesday night? How many sports play games on Sunday? Now, what's wrong with Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday playing sports? But how come most games are centered on Sundays and school games are on Wednesdays? Now, do you think the devil's taking a good thing, competitive to have fun, and he's orchestrated on days that people went to church forever? I mean, do you guys think about that? I mean, do you think about the bulk of the people that are in the stadiums compared to the bulk of the people that are in the church on Sunday? I mean, do you think the devil has anything to do with that? Or do you think it's just man? It's just lust of the flesh. We want to do what we want to do regardless of God. Turn to 1 Corinthians 10. And this is what I want to show you. I was talking about these different things. And okay, even drinking, smoking, electronics, video games, sports, eating, none of them are a sin in themselves. The only thing that I mentioned in there that was drugs, and it is a sin. Why is it a sin? Because it's illegal. And God made these laws down here. And to not mind man's civil law is a sin. Okay, so these other ones, you have liberty in Christ. You could choose these things, but let me show you what Paul says back in 1 Corinthians. Yeah, I got to find my verses before I start talking.
I'll have them for you.
Yeah, I did that, but then I felt like a hypocrite because I didn't use my Bible. Okay? All right, 1 Corinthians 10, stop talking. 1 Corinthians 10, verse 23. All things are lawful for me, but all things are not expedient. All things are lawful for me, but all things edify not. That's you know what expedient means? Expedient means Expedia.com. No, expedient means useful or profitable. If you guys use a King James, there's a tool on the internet. It's called Noah Webster's Dictionary. It was the dictionary of the words that were used in 1611 times. And whenever I come across a word, I just don't glaze over it because God used these words for a reason. I go flip on the computer, I look up these words. And expedient, yeah, we can glaze over that. Yeah, expedient, great. But it means useful or profitable. And he says, back in 23, he says, all things are lawful for me, but not all things are profitable. All things are lawful for me, but not all things not edify. So he's saying, flip over to 6, and I'll get to the conclusion of that. Chapter 12. All things are chapter 6, verse 12. All things are lawful unto me, but all things are not expedient. All things are lawful for me, but I will not be brought under the power of any. Because see, each of these things, each of those things that I read off, it has potential to be sin in your life. Electronics, anything that takes anything that you spend more time on with than you spend time with God is a sin. Anything not done in faith is a sin. You treasure sports more than you treasure your quiet time. You treasure your electronics more than you treasure your Bible. Paul's saying, hey, it's good for me. I can do all these things. In Christ, I have liberty to make choices. But when it becomes something in my life that I struggle with, that's when I have to say, no, I will not be brought under subject of it. Because I'm a new man. I'm not going to bring my body under subject of these things of the flesh. Because I'm a new man. That's the thing. He gives you liberty. He gives you decisions and a plethora to make, many. God does not put His thumb on the saved head and say, you will do this. He gives you choices. But you have to use your own mind. What's expedient for you and what's not. And what you're willing to bring yourself under, subject to, and what you're not. Pleasant to the eyes. We talked about pleasant to the eyes. You know, she said the lust of the eyes. And we've talked about, is it really 8 o'clock?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Someone's jacking with my clock. I was like, how did 45 minutes go by? All right, pleasant to the eyes. We got, oh, goodness. Let's see, pleasant to the eyes, covetousness. Oh, I just got to have it. How many times, guys? I swear I'm going to rip your lips up and just shut up. Okay? Every time I get going, I hear, and it just annoys me. When I tell you, when I'm up here, that's when your mouth's shut. You guys play back there as much as you want the whole time beforehand, but when it comes up here, this is the most important time of the night to me. This is when you guys should shut up, open your ears. God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. What's the ratio?
2 to 1.
Listen. People think money buys happiness. I read an interesting thing. The people that win the lottery at 6 months down the road, they are unhappier than they are than when they were born. How many rappers, how many NBA stars, how many movie stars do you see scroll across my Yahoo news feed in the morning when I click it on? Nicolas Cage, once multi-millionaire, now faces bankruptcy and homelessness. Why? Because no matter how much money you make, it's never going to be enough. Because you got to have more. And we brought up tithing last week. I wasn't even talking about tithing last week, but it kind of popped up. Which, you know, I know all of you guys have the ability to make money, whether it's just in the lounge or whatever. But whatever money you guys make, God's giving you that ability to make it. And if you become faithful with your money now, you'll have struggles in your spiritual life, but if you bring your money under God's power now, any other little spiritual battle you'll have in the future, you'll crush. Because money, the love of money, is the root of all evil. Oh, and we're going to close out with this last point. I had 2 points, and if I get through this other point, we might hit one more, but turn to Matthew. And he saw that the fruit was good to make one wise, the pride of life. Turn to Matthew chapter 6. Man, I just love Jesus. I don't know if you guys ever think about all these people that make Jesus into just this tiptoeing through the tulips and this Tiny Tim kind of fag. You know, I mean, I really think about it, and people have just made Jesus into a wuss. But man, if you read through the Gospels, guys, when he said, a legion of soldiers came for him, and he said, who are you looking for? And he said, Jesus, and he said, I am. In one of the Gospels, it gives the account that they all fell over at the sound of his voice. All the soldiers hit the ground. He went into the temple by himself. The temple was huge. Fashioned a whip, flipped over tables, and drove the money changers out. He told the religious leaders of the day, you hypocrites. Man, how many times did he tell his disciples, verily, verily, I say unto you? In today's age, that's like me saying, hey, shut up and listen. Because I'm getting ready to tell you something that's important. And you might want to quit jacking your mouth long enough to listen. Man, I wish people would see Jesus the way I saw him. Because maybe the fear of the Lord would come back into people's life, and you know, it would be a different place. Matthew 6. The pride of life, and this is just the first thing that came to my mind, and we'll just read verses 1 through 6. Take heed that ye do not your alms before men to be seen of them, otherwise you have no reward of your Father which is in heaven. Therefore, when you doest thine alms, do not sound a trumpet before thee, as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and in the streets, that they may have glory of men. Verily I say unto you, they have their reward. But when thou doest alms, let not thy left hand know what thy right hand doeth, that thine alms may be in secret, and thy Father which seeth in secret himself shall reward thee openly. And when thou prayest, thou shalt not be as the hypocrites are, for they love to pray and stand in the synagogues and on the corners of the streets, and they may be seen of men. Verily I say unto you, they have their reward. But thou, when thou prayest, enter into a closet, when thou hast shut the door, pray to the Father which is in secret, and thy Father which is in secret shall reward thee openly. And there's a parable, and actually I don't know if it's a parable, but Jesus is just observing something, and he's observing this Pharisee or whatever, and he's standing out on the street corner, and he's saying, God, look at me. I give a 10% of all my earnings. I fast 3 times a week, and I do this and I do that. And he says that man's prayer is not heard. But then he points over to the tax collector, and he's sitting there. God, have mercy on me, a sinner. I don't deserve your mercy. He said that prayer was heard. I mean, the pride of life. I talked about earlier that Jesus Christ was beaten. He was spit on. He bled. He got crowned. The thorns shoved in his head. He was crucified naked in front of men. How dare we don't publicly go out and tell that? We don't even hand out tracts. We don't witness. And I guarantee you, somebody in here just said, I do, in their mind. Well, that's the pride of life. Because whatever you're doing, it's not enough. Guys, I flip out. I go to work, I try to prepare these lessons. We got summer camp coming up. I'm teaching the night sessions in summer camp, and now I have 5 extra lessons to do on top of the lessons that I do during the week, and I got 90 days to do it that flies by like that. I absolutely have no time. But I think constantly, God, I've got to do more. Because I know what I am. I know what He saved me from. And nothing I can do could ever repay it. But God, I've got to do more than I'm doing. I just don't know how to do it. And that should be our constant thought. Whatever we're doing, we're not doing enough. Whatever we're doing, we should be glorifying God in whatever we're doing at any point. And I know out of a Christian's life, we glorify God about 1.2 seconds of the day. I mean, is that a fair estimate? I mean, maybe you guys read your Bible 2 minutes, 5 minutes in the morning. Maybe you catch a verse here or there. Maybe you scan your phone, see John 3:16. I mean, I asked a question a week back, and I was absolutely shocked. How many people have a quiet reading time a day? Where they can hear from God, where they can learn from God. How come we can't take 5 minutes a day to start off with? How come? Because it's the pride of life. God, when I need you, I'm going to read. But until then, I've got this. But as soon as my life drops out from under me, I'm going to read morning, noon, and night. And as soon as it gets better, I'm going to stop reading. And as soon as it goes back downhill, I'm going to start reading again. And if I start hurting enough, I'm going to tithe a little bit, because that should make me feel better. Look guys, camp this year is going to be about Romans 12. Read up on it. I've changed it around a little bit. I was going to do dead men. Now I'm going to be talking about my life, my sacrifice all week. What is an appropriate sacrifice? A sacrifice dies. I'm dead. Galatians 2:20. Look it up. I'm crucified with Christ. I should die daily. That's my reasonable sacrifice. Jesus carried that cross all the way up the hill. When they beat him, he got up. At any time, he could have called a legion of angels down. At any time, he could have brought himself off that cross. But he bared it all. He bared the shame. He bared the punishment. He bared the spit, the hits, the cussing, the denial. He bared it all for you. And how dare we not live our life as a sacrifice for him? Because whatever we do will never, ever repay him for what he's done for us. But we have to strive. Though that we'll never, ever, ever be able to pay for what he did for us. But we should strive daily to try. Progress. Always make progress in building your temple. Your temple's never going to be perfect until Jesus Christ comes back. And you get that holy temple that he's going to make you a brand new body. But you should always be building your temple. Striving to get better. Renee, close this